As the massive oil slick continues to approach the Gulf Coast shores, there is growing fear about the devastation it could cause to local wildlife and their habitats. CBS News special correspondent Jeff Corwin joins us with more now on that from Gulfport, Mississippi. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning, Harry. Of course, the people who live along the Gulf are no strangers to hurricanes, but what's churning along these coasts is something vastly different. And the overall mood here is one of nervous anticipation as this community braces for the impact that could hit the local natural resources, which are, of course, a hallmark to the region.
At first glance, all looks serene along the Gulf coastline. Rare terns nest in scrapes of sand. Black skimmers glide along the water in search of food. But just offshore, an unprecedented environmental catastrophe is drifting this way.
It has the great potential for wiping out the entire population of least terns along that coast area. 12,000 least terns used to inhabit these Biloxi, Mississippi shores. Now there are only 2,000.
It only takes about 20 days for the eggs of the least tern to hatch, then another 20 days for the chicks to actually leave the nest, which means right now is the most critical period in the life cycle of these birds when they're most vulnerable.
And it's not just the least terns. It's estimated that more than 400 species would be impacted by the spill.
We have a 30-foot tank.
Dr. Moby Salangi runs the Institute of Marine Mammal Studies in Gulfport. He's prepared to house and treat up to 100 marine animals. For now, his tanks are empty, except for a lone dolphin from a previous rescue.
If things stay on course and this oil spill hits the way it's predicted to, how will this place be transformed?
There are about 3,000 to 5,000 dolphins that are from here to the mouth of the river. So if many of them start coming in, it's going to be overwhelming.
On Sunday, a rescue team from Dr. Salangi's center recovered 13 sea turtles that had washed ashore, an unusually high number.
You gotta flip it over and take.
While scientists have yet to determine if oil caused their death, there's concern that the turtles may be the first victims of this oil spill. The Exxon Valdez spill in 1989 left more than 250,000 animals dead. If the spill in the Gulf continues to flow at its current estimated rate, it would take only about 6 weeks to eclipse the Valdez spill.
There was a finite quantity with the Valdez. They knew they had 11 million gallons. After that, there was no more. Here, we don't know.
Harry, the great challenge down here is we don't know exactly when or where or even if the oil is going to hit this region, but what we do know is that when it does, it could potentially have a devastating impact on the local wildlife down here. So scientists are really trying to grapple with the challenge to maintain these species and to come up with a plan to save these animals.
What happens to an animal if, for instance, it's swimming through, say, for instance, we don't know exactly what happened to those turtles, but if those turtles were swimming through that oil, what happens to them physically that would cause them to shut down and die?
Excellent question. For example, let's look at a dolphin. This is a marine mammal, which means it breathes air. When it comes to the surface of the water, when its blowhole opens up, it will actually be breathing in oil, and it can actually drown on the oil it takes into its lungs. Those birds that we featured in this piece, they are very rare animals. There are now only 2,000 of these birds left. They also ironically feed in the waters where the oil is. So when they go into that water, if they're not immediately killed by the oil saturating their feathers, minimally they'll take that oil and feed it to their offspring. What we have here is the ultimate Pandora's box. And as this oil leaks out and it invades this ecosystem, there's really no way to get it out.
And you know, you were talking during the piece about the Exxon Valdez. So some people have said, well, you know, that was much heavier crude. It's a little bit of a different situation. Is there a way to compare this and Exxon?
Well, one comparison that we could make is that both of these spills could have a dramatic impact. With Valdez, certainly had a powerful impact on that local ecosystem. But there are some big differences. For example, up in Valdez in Prince William Sound along the Alaska coastline, the waters were much deeper and the tides were far more rigorous and turbulent. And believe it or not, that actually had a positive impact on the overall spill. Here, what we have are much shallower waters, and it tends to have more of a stagnant effect. So when that oil comes in, it's here to stay.
Wow. Jeff Corwin, thank you very, very much for your expertise this morning. Do appreciate it, sir. Take care.
Thanks, Harry.